able to advise the authorities of that their rights and basic rights and dignity are respected. We distribute X number of food parcels to people who've been displaced due to fighting in their villages, whatever. We talk about what we do, but not what we see. And this is to avoid being drawn into any controversy. Which now takes me to the other two questions, Kashmir, and you said about conflict in India. These are ongoing debates we're having. I'm going to be quite blunt here. I'm not going to comment on them here. They are highly sensitive issues, and I don't want to want to see the ICRC to be quoted in any way in public. We don't take, this is the whole point, confidentiality. Surinder mentioned confidentiality. This is not a principle of our work, it's a means of our work. It's a means to try as much as possible to remain neutral, impartial, and to be perceived as such as well. Because we can always go up to the authorities and say, look at me, I'm neutral, I'm impartial, but that's my side. I have to make sure that the authorities actually believe in our impartiality. And if we start making public statements about issues that are part of this highly sensitive, politicized environment, believe me, our perception is going to be even more difficult to manage than it is already. And believe me, our perception is difficult to manage. Imagine, you are, I don't know, you work for the Ministry of the Interior or for some security service in country X, and you have a foreigner, I'm a foreigner, come along and say, look, I'd like to work in your most sensitive areas in your country. You're going to be suspicious, of course. And we have to deal with this suspicion. I'm dealing with this suspicion throughout my career at the ICRC. There hasn't been a single country that I've worked in where I've not at some point been accused of being a spy. Normal. I think it's normal. I'd be very suspicious if they wouldn't accuse me of being a spy, because I come into their country and say, look, let me work in your most sensitive areas. Let me visit the most sensitive security detainees you're holding. Let me look, under the blanket of what your government is doing, of what your security authorities are doing. Of course they're going to be suspicious. So us as ICRC delegates and employees, we have to make sure that we can lower the suspicion and come to a working arrangement where they allow us to help them to better respect the lives and dignity of people affected by conflict. So I hope that goes as an answer. There was a question back there earlier on from the...
You take the floor to Surinder before we take another round.
No, Benjamin has literally answered everything, Professor Hina, and I think your question also, but just to let you know, you see, there are other organizations, international organizations who are doing the advocacy, and we are the ones, we are very close to the people who need us. For example, if we are in a jail, we directly speak to those persons. And that's one of the reasons, the means that we remain silent. Because tomorrow if we go out of the jail, he's still in the captivity. And if something is exposed, what will happen to that particular person does not mean that they are going to respect. So that silence is one of the ways that we maintain, but that doesn't mean, again, to your question, that we are not concerned, we are not monitoring, we are not talking to the authorities. But again, in the confidential way, we do that. It may take some time, like some of the cases of the, it has taken 30 years, 40 years also to resolve on some of the issues, but we keep on talking about it. And I would also request, that let's keep our pens at bay as far as the media is concerned. If some media person is out right there, that will help us to have a good flow of discussion, good flow of question and answers, and to understand the issues as we go on proceeding of the day today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists. I recognize.
Thank you for recognizing me. My question is to Mr. Benjamin. I'm a student at law school at the Jindal Global Law School. As a law student who's eager to know more about the scope of an organization which you claim is not just an advisory body and has in fact certain powers, my question is specifically in order to gain insight from your personal experience, where you personally fought, and maybe one memory that really stands out, where participation of ICRC to a very heated issue actually made a difference. And that sort of therefore reinstated the work that ICRC does, and also the fact that despite it being an advisory body, it's more than just an advisory body. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
this is Anand from Center for International Legal Studies, JNU. First of all, I want to condemn the statement by Mr. Dubey, who said it's a terrorism in the Central Asia. There is no definite definition for terrorism. And my question to all the panelists is about the responsibility of ICRC. Like for example, if you see in front of your eyes there is a violation of international humanitarian law, and both the sides, either the state side or the insurgency side, are violating the human rights law, and you have any responsibility to bring out this violation of humanitarian issues, for example genocide or something else, or else if you are called by the international agencies like UN or refugee organization as a witness, like you have witnessed this genocide or this kind of violations of international, do you have the responsibility to go there and like bring these issues out to the world, or else you simply like don't engage in this kind of things? Thank you.
Ma'am, in the corner.
Thank you, sir. I'm Babita Sharma. I'm a research scholar in ITM Law School. My question is like when you're talking about the mandate and scope of ICRC, you were saying that ICRC is mainly looking for the man-made disasters. But when I see more or less, I find most of the disasters are man-made disaster, and in coming days, like we see natural disasters are occurring everywhere. And it's either because of the ignorance of men or because of the deliberation. So what ICRC is doing, and I believe the kind of environmental situation we are facing in coming days, these kind of disasters are going to rise up. So what is the role of ICRC and what is the plan regarding this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Panelists.
Okay. I'll take the easiest, probably. Yeah, my most successful question first. My personal experience, and I didn't, maybe I should say first, I mean, we have an advisory role to play, but we are also, invested, the ICRC has invested a lot in actual implementation of assistance activities. So maybe I shouldn't have downplayed that too much. I mean, there are large-scale assistance activities going on. But when it comes to my personal experience and the practical consequences, I'll take a very, if you want, small example on the scale of things. It's what we call family reunifications. Because this is something that we've done for a particularly long time, and I believe we're particularly good at. I mean, distributing food. A lot of countries are doing this, and I mean, India is a good example. When there's a natural disaster, or any form of man-made or not man-made disaster, there's a good machinery that functions generally in India, as we've seen on numerous occasions recently. But family reunions is something that's not exclusive, but almost exclusive to the ICRC. And I think one of the most rewarding moments for me, and I've had it at various points in time, in particular in Congo, where displacement due to fighting has occurred and continues to occur on a regular basis. People run in all directions, and what happens quite often is that children are separated from their families, and we often, in conjunction and in close collaboration with National Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, have a huge network that try to pick up these separated children and then do what we call the essential research agency. So that's what we call it still nowadays. Essential tracing agency. Thank you. That always sounds a bit dodgy, but it's, believe me, it has nothing to do with us being spies. It's the Central Tracing Agency, and in Congo, I've been able, and I've had the honor to be there at numerous occasions when we've flown these children back to their villages or taken them back by cars and see the emotions of the parents or the sisters or brothers being reunited with their siblings. So that's probably the most practical and at the same time the most emotional time when you see the direct consequences of our work. So I think this answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I will not leave my collaborators high and dry. This is a joint collaboration, so I thought I should also come in. Of course, more of the question is directed to ICRC, but the fact that we are, well, to some extent I agree with you that we also play a role in because we have a specific objective as an intergovernmental organization, that is towards progressive development of international law. Now, where do you see our collaboration with ICRC here? The fact that they are on the ground, they know what is happening on the ground, they are close to the people. There are a lot of issues affecting international law, especially in the development of international humanitarian law, which there is a gap, a big gap in international law in general. That I remember in 2008, they are developing this idea of IHL as part of customary international law. Now, this is where our organization comes in, where we have to get feedback from member states of 47 countries. What is their thought on this idea of IHL as part of customary international law? So it is a very highly deliberated or discussed issues that require specialists in those areas. That once we have gathered all this information or the necessary legal knowledge that we have, then we would disseminate to member states and we will report. Now, the fact that we are also a permanent observer of United Nations, we have a seat in Geneva and New York to discuss, to debate on all these issues, taking the perspective of Asian African countries. That it is not necessary, that is the way. Now, we may have our own perspective of certain laws, certain evolving laws or even norms that could be later the soft laws into hard laws. So this is our role, really. So when the idea comes from ICRC, there's going to be an issue on drones tomorrow or today. Now, what are the legal implications? Will there be the perspective on IHL will be expanded? What will be the position? So we can't take position because we are secretariat, but we will definitely link it. We will definitely disseminate this new idea, new development to member states, and they will give their feedback. Now, taking into account that not all member state of ALCO has the luxury of specialists, you know, they don't. But we, because of our contact, because of our collaboration with ICRC, with other UN specialized agency, we can have seminars, we can have workshops of this kind. And of course, this will not go empty because then we will collate, we will have pools of, a corpus of knowledge on this area that we develop, and we will then disseminate to member states. That is our role. So it is not just, you know, you see what is your role. Because I had this problem in explaining, particularly the student, what is your role? When I say legal consultative organization, then you have no role, you know. So, so actually, it is so subtle that we have a role to play, as I said, in progressive development of international law, especially in looking at the perspective of the Asian African countries.
Yeah. Well, I should start with Babita. I mean, Babita, I would just suggest, because you're still a student and a researcher, there is an important, I mean, go to our website, and also there is a Red Cross and Red Crescent review. You will find that all these challenges, the future challenges which Worthy General Secretary had mentioned in his presentation, as well as the challenges which you are mentioning about the future challenges of the climate, as well as the population movement, or drones, or the word terrorism, which was there, how it should be defined, and other things to be looked into. We rigorously debate on those issues. We bring that type of a quarterly review in which the experts like you who are here, we invite them to participate in those type of things. Not only that, then we have got a legal advisory board where Charles is also a member, and you can ask him, he can help you also. We keep on looking into our future challenges, quite ahead how the things are happening and what could be the future challenges. For example, now no more the conventional wars are talked about. I mean, okay, the internal conflicts and things are there. People are talking about the space. Nobody wants to fight literally on their area. They just want to attack the satellites, what he was talking about, the satellite things. This is yet another concern, and a lot is being debated across us. We do a lot of research, and then we do a little of campaigning also. For example, on the landmines. or some of the weapons like laser gun, laser weapons. I mean, because of the campaigning of ICRC and like-minded organizations, we did not allow that weapon to be used in the public or right here. So these are the things which we are also equally concerned, and it's the role of the researchers and these type of forums where things can literally come up. And yes, Dr. Anand, I mean, as far as your question is concerned, but as you know, being a legal luminary, that every country has its own sovereignty. We offer our services on many of the issues when we see these or observe issues, but it totally depends on a particular country. Will they accept our role or will they not accept our role? That's another issue which always there, but that doesn't mean we also withdraw. We keep on pursuing, It might take sometimes 10 years for us to literally leap forward, but we always use the words genocides or any others very cautiously. We don't use those type of things, or terrorism or other words. Again, we look into the legal implementations and then move forward. We believe in baby steps and try to reach at the spot.
Before we enter the final round of questions for this stage, I wish to just misuse or abuse my role as moderator to just make reference to a very interesting installation at the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Museum in Geneva on the children of the Rwandan conflict who were returned under the Family Links program. And it's quite remarkable to see this as just one aspect of the work of the movement in respect of reunification. In addition, and perhaps as a response to an aspect of a question raised, is the immunity of the ICRC insofar as rendering testimony before tribunals is concerned. This was a matter which was raised jurisprudentially and settled by the Tadic case and confirmed by the Simic case and codified in the rules of procedure under the Rome Statute to the International Criminal Court, all of which of course are widely available for further reference. And to begin the third round of questions, sir, in the corner.
Two small queries. One is that in India you have the presence in Kashmir. Is there in other parts of India where you are working? That's one. And if only Kashmir, then why? The second question is, are you doing something for the Nigerians, girls who have been kidnapped at a large scale at present, and they are having a very bad time?
Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
Yeah, since ICRC is very active in all the armed conflict areas, now since children are also part of and they are also participating in these armed conflicts, so how the ICRC is dealing with these children? Are there any special mechanisms which are being adopted by ICRC for these children? Thank you.
Thank you. And there was a hand here for a question. If not, the floor is open for sir.
My question is, should the ICRC only quench fire? Should it only quench fire? Should it not prevent the fire from, in the first place, taking place? In that, I would just like to know, does the ICRC have any early warning mechanisms? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Panelists.
Okay, I'll maybe start with the third question first. No, we are not engaged in peacemaking. That is not our role. And again, being a convinced ICRC person, I think this is a good thing because there are existing mechanisms linked to the UN, linked to regional mechanisms. There are a lot of peacemaking mechanisms. They don't always work. They're not perfect, but they are there. And our role is really not to add on another layer to these peacemaking mechanisms. Our role really is to try to contribute to mitigating the humanitarian impact of armed violence. And this sometimes can, as an, if you like, as an auxiliary consequence, contribute to reducing tensions? It can, but this is not the main aim. Because as soon as, again, I come back to what I said earlier, of course, if conflict prevention was working well, there wouldn't be any conflicts, and that would be much, much better. The reality is that conflicts still do take place, so we see our role sort of beyond after the prevention measures have failed, and to concentrate our efforts on strengthening the legal systems that kick in once conflict does take place, meaning the laws, the rules that limit the impact of violence on human beings. So I'd like your expression with quenching the fire, by the way, and preventing the fire. Thank you. Regarding children being used as soldiers, yes, we do deal with this. We don't have a specific mechanism. This is one of the instances, one of the unfortunately many instances where humanitarian laws are not respected. Children, like women, like old people, we consider to be particularly vulnerable, particularly exposed during times of armed conflict. So we put a lot of effort into, or we will put, if you like, even more effort into trying to convince parties to a conflict to not use children as soldiers. And I'm saying this again within the context of our, if you like, limited capacity to impose the rules. We are not here to impose rules, we are here to try to convince the actors involved in conflict and in armed violence to respect the rules. There are other mechanisms, and we at least morally support the other existing mechanisms that go after perpetrators, but we will not be involved in this process. This is also why what Charles mentioned earlier, I mean, there's specific provisions that actually disengage the ICRC from having to give witness about specific things. We can choose to give witness, but we always have to protect in the end our neutrality and our impartiality and the way we're perceived during ongoing conflicts. So if we start standing up again in court, somebody is accused, that backfires for us, and we will probably find it even more difficult to work where we should be working, which is on the ground. Then the other two issues, again, I mean, I'm coming back. Nigeria, I can't answer the question. I don't know if we have an office in Nigeria. I don't know if the office was approached on this particular issue of the 200 girls. I can't answer it. I would imagine that at some point somebody called up the ICRC and said, you know, is there anything you can do? I can't. I honestly, even if I had the details, I probably couldn't give them. But I'm assuming that there's some sort of involvement going on because we have a presence in Nigeria. And regarding India, yes, I mean we work in other parts of India as well. We work closely with the Indian Red Cross Society in a number of other regions other than Jammu and Kashmir. We don't have any permanent presence. We don't have any office structures, but that doesn't mean that we are not following up and trying to work, again, within the constraints that exist in a country as large as India. I mean, I would say India is as large as the whole continent that I come from. So anyway, but we do work in other parts as well.
I think that it has been answered, but we are present in New Delhi right now. So we are present in Delhi, and we are present in most of the universities. We do partnerships as well as in other areas. And I think rest has been answered, so no need to repeat anything, except that child soldier is a big concern for us. They are one of the deadliest soldiers, and who, as he rightly said, that can be used in any way. So that's a big concern for us.
Panelists, we thank you very much for your time and your expertise and sharing on some very interesting and relevant issues, as well as to participants for your extremely thought-provoking and engaging questions. By way of overview and recap, we see that there are many points of convergence for both institutions, both also having a permanent observer status presence at the United Nations organization. We also collaborate institutionally on that level, at the New York and Geneva level. We share in discussions and debates, and we, in many instances, hold similar positions on issues. Taking one, before moving forward, will be that of child soldiers. The ICRC works very closely with interested parties on addressing, and if possible, responding to the humanitarian nuances relating to child soldiers. And I speak not only of our support towards the accession of the first protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but also the formulation of certain tools, which we shall discuss in greater length tomorrow morning. But I just wish to mention the ICRC's model laws and provisions on the use and recruitment of children in armed conflict in support of that protocol to the Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which, after the Geneva Conventions, incidentally, is the most widely ratified international instrument. So more on that later on in the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the ALCO Secretariat at this time, I wish to invite you to lunch. And though I have somewhat an awkward sense of direction at the moment, I could tell you that we proceed from the main entrance and in this direction. Yes? That's my door. To the back of this building where we should partake in lunch, and the return schedule as per the agenda applies. So I thank you and wish you an enjoyable lunch.
मेरा भी पढ़ सकते हैं अरे यार क्या हुआ lunch as usual. आप जा सकते हैं. Is it cold here? No, it's it's okay. It's fine. We can very well sleep.